How do you cope when you learn your 9-year-old son has cancer? Listen today on the Freedom Club podcast.
Welcome to the Freedom Club podcast, where we discover the fight for freedom, fulfillment, passion, and purpose. Your host is Curt Mercadante, Gallup certified strengths coach, an agency founder who is dedicated to coaching individuals seeking to level up their life and their businesses. The Freedom Club is about unlocking your talents, turning them into strengths, and crushing your objectives. You can learn more at curtmercadante.com. Welcome to the Freedom Club.
And this is the Freedom Club podcast. I am your host, Curt Mercadante. Thank you for being here. Listen, on today's podcast, we're going to feature the first of several discussions I had with Helene Rennervik. She lives in Sweden. She is the author of Hoping and Coping: How My Darling Little Son and I Broke Free of Cancer. I met Helen a month or two ago. She actually is a participant in some of my coaching courses, and I read her book, and I was so moved by it. And this book isn't just for kids or people who have found out that they have cancer. It's for their family members. It's for spouses. It's for parents, because there is an impact on the entire family, on everyone in your entire sphere. And I know this all too well. My father passed away from cancer a little over 5 years ago. And so after reading this book, I was inspired, I was moved, and I really wanted to interview Helen for the podcast. So without further delay, here's Helene Rennervik, author of Hoping and Coping: How My Darling Little Son and I Broke Free of Cancer. Thank you. So I'm here with Helene Rennervik, and we met a few months ago or a few weeks ago through one of my coaching programs, and I'm so pleased and honored to have you here on the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here with you. An honor for me too.
Yeah, and you know, you signed up for one of my group courses, and we got to talking, and your story, as I got to know you, was so inspirational. And you told me about your book, which is, I'm going to get this right, Hoping and Coping: How My Darling Little Son and I Broke Free of Cancer.
I have a copy of it here right now. Yes. Hoping and Coping. Yes.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful book, not just, well, there's parts of it that aren't so wonderful, right? Especially the parts about finding out about your son's cancer and what happened right after that. But it's inspirational in the fact that it's not just meant for people with cancer. It's meant for their loved ones, because they are going through an ordeal as well, right?
Especially, when it's I wanted to write a book about, what can you do when things like this are happening? It's just not only inspiration. That's not what it's there for, because many times cancer patients, they become a victim, and that's not what they like to be. It's not, you don't want to be a victim. It's, it's something that is in our society, and it's not going away. And that's what, me and another company that I'm working with, an organization, War on Cancer, is working on. How to, how do we live with this? I mean, it doesn't end when the treatment is over. There could be so many implication that actually happens afterwards, and especially with children's cancer. I mean, a lot of people don't know about it. I was looking when my son got cancer on the internet, and it's not maybe the right way to only look on the internet. You get the worst, and I wanted answers, and there weren't answers around. That's what I wanted to share. There was no time writing a blog when Yusuf was sick. But that was a promise. So last year, that's when I grabbed hold of it, and I got a coach. I became a coach myself, but, I really believe, that's why I contacted you too, because I really believe, you can always just become better, and you can become better if you have somebody there who could actually, lure that out of you, or, you find it. And so the Hoping and Coping is a book for parents, for loved ones, like you said, the patient themselves. It doesn't really have to only apply to children. And I brought in ways of coping, because even to get the name, the title, I mean, that took some time. And my coach Diane, she said take its time, and she did some exercises with me for me to find that. And all I did during that time, I didn't lose hope. And that's what I tell every parent or every person: don't lose hope. There is always hope for anything. And then what do? You cope. You learn to cope during that time. And not, my life is also by, asking questions, but not to go into the answer, because the answer disempower. A question really empowers.
Interesting.
So if you, so, I live by questions, and if you really just stay there for a minute and then say, okay, what could I do now? And then you wait, because, everything is so quick all the time. But if we just take the time and be a little bit patient and wait, maybe we can get the answer. It was many times when I almost wanted to break down, but, I had to cope, and I had to find better ways how to cope with that. So that's what I'm sharing. It's a story that I'm sharing in there. And some exercises that you could do with your child. Not just for the child, for the parent themselves too, because they need strength. They really need to be strong during that time.
And, so the name of this show is the Freedom Club. And, a common theme, and as you were just talking, but also through the book, is especially when you first get the news, right? And you're forced to go to the internet. There was a lot of confusion, and your situation was different than some, in that you had to leave the country.
Yes.
You didn't know which doctor you were going to go see,
No.
but you can feel trapped and almost feel like you lose a little bit of your freedom because you don't know where to turn. And obviously, if you're 9 years old and this is happening to you as well, there's some confusion. And so you lose a sense of that freedom. And there is definitely a theme, and you talked about gaining that power back through the use of questions instead of, giving answers. There really is, you have a new sense since before you went through this ordeal of what freedom means to you.
Yeah. I mean, freedom, when you say the word freedom, I feel, you can feel it in your body. I mean, you feel the sensation. What is freedom? Freedom for me it's so many things. It's, if I go back to what happened with Yusuf's case at that time, like you said, we were trapped. We were living in the Middle East. That's where he was brought up. Even going to school, that was freedom for him, because that's where he met his friends. Playing football, that didn't happen again. Again, he was trapped. He was trapped in a bed. He couldn't use his leg and this, so that was taken away from us. Simple things like that you take for granted. To wake up in the morning and to be able to go and have, that was first when he had his leg in a cast. I saw those things, you couldn't take a shower. How am I going to give him a shower? And that's actually a freedom, to be able to take a shower. He couldn't take a shower like for so long. When he could do that, in the end, he was like, oh, just to feel all that water and everything. That's freedom. To be able to wake up, for a child, to be able to go out and play with your friends, or to walk. He has, changed completely, because he was sitting in a wheelchair for over a year. And we take that for granted. So, and to eat whatever you want. And with a child, he's really, I'm so grateful that he's my son, because he didn't, if I couldn't plan things. He was in for his treatments. They could be consecutively in for 1 week, and then just a break of 2 days, and then another treatment started. Then he could be off for 2 weeks, but it didn't happen like that. So we could plan things like, you said 4th of July. First thing that came into my mind, which I wrote about in the book, my friend had arranged a party that we were going to go to, and he was so excited. And she was, they were barbecue and this, and, kids were going to be there. And he got a fever. We had to go into the hospital. But he never said, "Oh, Mom, but you promised me." Because in the beginning, I told him I will do everything I can. But I never promised him, even I will be next to you all the time. I couldn't promise him that. Because when he went in to have an MRI or an X-ray, I couldn't always be with him there. So it's really important to be honest with your child and not, promise too much that you can't keep. And that's also a freedom, to promise somebody something. For me, it sounds really weird, but that's freedom. Because, a promise for me is, yes, that's what you will do for somebody else, for yourself, or freedom to go out in the nature. We have a big park opposite the hospital in Stockholm called Hagaparken. That was freedom for me, to go out, even if it was half an hour, but to go out and be immersed in the nature. That was freedom for me, to hear the birds, to feel the wind, even if it was not sunshine, if it was raining or whatever. But all those things we take for granted. We always look for things, but nature is so healing, and you don't take that for granted. Being able to sit down and have a cup of coffee, we take that for granted maybe, but when I could do that, it was like, wow. When I could go out on my own, because I didn't have somebody there all the time. And that's also what I write about in the book. You can help other people by making them food, bringing them food. Don't wait for them to contact you, just do it. Yeah. But then again, if you have other kids, tell them, I will take your kids so you can have a bath, because you can't take that for granted either. Just immerse in a bath, if it's half an hour. And that's freedom. When I was in Germany, I was writing that there. I forgot that there was actually a spa in the hotel where we were staying. But just laying down in this bath and having these minerals, that was freedom for me. And, I really got away from material. I have lived very luxurious in the Middle East, and all of a sudden we were living out of a suitcase. But that's actually freedom.